Yes, elephants are, I like to think of them as elephant beings. We're human beings,
Yes.
they're elephant beings. Why are they so special? Their brain is the size of 4 of ours put together. Let's think about that. Okay, we think we've got big brains, yes, but elephants have a brain almost 4 times the size of a human brain, and it has the same convolutions, the same cerebral cortex. And so they have many of the characteristics that we think of as human, and yet they've evolved independently. I began in Africa studying gorillas, and gorillas are part of our family. They're great apes, we're great apes. And they have hands, and they perceive the world in very much the same way that we do, with sight as being a primary, and then sound, and then a little bit of smell and touch. Whereas elephants, it's all about smell. And then hearing, and then sight. As Clement said, their eyesight is rubbish. You can see stuff, but mainly they interpret the world using their nose, and what a nose, and their ears, and what ears. So their view of the world, and that's a human term, their view. We think of someone's opinion as being their view. Wait a minute, no, an elephant would probably say their smell of the world, or their sound, audio olfactory understanding of the world is very different from ours. And yet, as was observed in the film, they have a family life, they have a society, and forest elephant society differs in some ways from the savanna elephants, but we're only beginning to understand that because the only place we can easily study forest elephants are in the bais. And those are like the social clubs. I went to a bai in Central African Republic, just over the border from where they were. It's called Bayanga, Grand Saline, a big salt lake. And it was watching a gathering of a community. And you saw how some of the elephants were throwing yellow mud over them. And I don't know if they're aware of the color of the mud, but it looked like they were coming from different directions. There were people wearing yellow, people wearing red, people just clean skin because they've been bathing. And they knew they were coming. They knew who was coming because they talked to each other using infrasonic rumbles. So when we hear an elephant say, we're hearing the upper harmonics of deep infrasound, which rumble through the air and through the ground. And they have sensitive feet that pick up seismic communication. Just think about that. They're feeling vibrations through their feet as well as through their ears, through the ground as well as through the air. And those rumbles, as far as we know, can travel miles. How many miles? We're not sure. So when we see elephants coming and greeting at a clearing, I think they've known for hours who's on the way, because they've been hearing the communication. They're doing this like they're on the phone. No, they're making trunk calls, but not using a phone. And the unit of elephant society is the mother-infant bond, and the older kids. And as he explained, the leader of a family herd is the matriarch, with her sisters and daughters and granddaughters sometimes. They live long enough to have grandparents. That's a whole different level of society. You've got, mother, offspring, and sometimes if it's a family group with fathers, elephant males tend not to be part of the family herd. So at adolescence, the age of that youngster who they found dead, who said, he was maybe 11 years old, is barely adolescent, just hitting puberty. And they don't really mature until they're in their teens, and for male elephants, they don't really play an important role in the family herd. They get sort of kicked out when they're adolescent and go and hang out with groups of other male elephants, larking about and having fun and aspiring to the day that one time they'll be of interest to adult female. But it's only when they're in their 20s and 30s that they start to come into must, which is this period of heightened aggression and sexual activity and streaming from the temporal gland, which is between the eyes and the ears. So that's a a period of male risk-taking. So a young male in musk will challenge bigger, older males. He wouldn't normally have the courage to do so. But in doing so, he kind of climbs up the male hierarchy and has more of a chance to mate with females. Females, when they come into estrus, come into season, which is quite an unusual event, because as again you observe, they're breastfeeding their kids until about 4, and then they have the same lactational amenorrhea. That is, when a female is feeding her offspring, the stimulation of the nipple sets in motion a hormone reaction which suppresses the release of the next egg. It happens for us too, and the other apes. But that means that there tends to be a space between births with elephants of about 4 years or so. When they stop breastfeeding, then they start to come into season, and then they will emit what's called an estrus rumble, which is going to, "Hey guys, I'm over here," very deep voice, and males will prick up their ears and lift up their trunks. Oh, the smell of a female in season is very alluring to male elephants, and they'll gather around and compete with each other. And so elephant society, that's sort of the at the family level, but at the clan level, related family groups will meet up occasionally, and in forest elephants we see that happening in the bais. In savanna elephants, sometimes there are photographs of gatherings of hundreds of elephants. What are they doing? Well, if you've got a brain 4 times the size of a human brain, what are you using it for? I think you're using it for social reasons, knowing who's in your area and who maybe you only see occasionally. And during that long childhood, like our childhood, they have a lot to learn, as was explained, where to find stuff. And with savanna elephants, often it's predicting the weather and where the rains are falling and there's fresh grasses. In the forest, it's knowing which trees are fruiting when. What's the pattern of fruiting? And where do you get your salt supplement? And some of that footage there, I have not seen on other documentaries on the BBC or whatever. There's lovely sort of wet faces, and they've been sticking their face in, and what they're doing is they're using their trunk to sort of swirl and blow bubbles to stir up the sediment, and then bring that up and ingest it. So a lot of information in that film, as well as the stories of the conservationists.